Hello, this is Professor Gibson, and this is a video, or my video if you will, on key items in Chapter 7. So the real thing, I'm going to focus on two things here. They're both about interest questions, okay? The first is that I want to highlight the fact that there's two kinds of interest, simple interest and compound interest. We don't use simple a lot anymore, but there are some situations where it comes up, and Section 7.3 is all about it. Most of the times we deal with interest in real life is compound interest. And it kind of depends on how you count, but really there's two main ways, that types of questions you're going to get for this. One of them, I'm just going to call them compound interest questions. Compound interest questions have one payment, okay? If you get a question that there's only one payment involved, it uses this formula right here, okay? The other are annuity questions, and annuity questions have periodic payments. Periodic payment is a repeated payment the same distance in time apart. So periodic payments are usually every month, but they can be other time periods. They can be made every day, every week, every quarter. Semi-annually would be twice a year, every 6 months, and annually would be every year. So let's go back up to the top here. Let's look at simple interest. The main thing, by the way, that I want to get out of this is that when you read a question, the first thing you need to do in a quiz or a test especially is decide, is it a simple interest, a compound interest, or an annuity? All right. When it's a compound interest or an annuity, they'll either use those words, or somehow they have to tell you either how often the payments are made or how often the money is compounded. So if they say either one of those things, how often money is compounded, that'll be a compound interest. How often payments are made, that'll be an annuity. With the simple interest, there's no compounding and there's only the one payment, so they'll either use the phrase simple interest, or they won't talk about the number of times it's compounded or the number of payments. All right. So they don't say anything about compounding or number of payments. It's simple. They talk about compounding and there's only one payment, it's compound. If there's multiple payments, it's an annuity. And that's the key thing that I really want to get to here. You have to decide first so that you use the right formula for the situation. All right, so here's a typical problem right here for the simple interest. It says find the missing value, round your answer to the nearest year. Really, in a way, all of the simple interest questions are like this. Some of them are a little more hidden. There are some word questions, but what it comes down to is, you look at the formula here again, I equals P times R times T. There's 4 variables. They're always going to tell you, somehow or other, going to tell you 3 of them. You solve for the one you don't know. Right? So in this case, for example, all right, so I equals PRT. Okay, they tell us the interest here is 57,600. Right, the principal is 300,000. The rate is always per year. It says 3.2%. So we write that in as a decimal, 0.032. And then time this time is the one we don't know. And by the way, for these questions, time is always annual, all right? So for example, if they say it's 5 months, so you have to convert that to an annual basis. So if they say something like 5 months, then you'd use time would be 5/12. All right, and so from here you would solve for t, okay? I'm just kind of going at some of the big picture ideas here, so I'm not going to actually work most of the details out. Now let's look at a compound interest. Let's look at this one here. Find the compound interest and the future value. Okay? So here they tell us the principal, the rate, compounded weekly. So compounded weekly, how many times per year would be weekly? Right? Well, that'd be 52, right? And the time is 39 years. So we come over here, I just recopied the formula, and let's plug it in. A equals, principal is 110,000, right? 1 plus the rate is 0.0451 divided by n, it's 52 times a year. And then the exponent is n times t, right? It's the same n, so it's 52, and t was the 39 years, so it's 52 times 39. Now, calculator different types of calculators handle exponents differently, especially when, like this one, you got to multiply something in the exponent. So what I always recommend is the first step, just calculate that. 52 times 39, draw a line through it, it turns out, and then write the number. In this case, it's 2028. So you're just going to put 2028 in for the exponent. Okay, so that's the tricks I wanted to show you there. There's definitely some more details from this and another calculation. I mean, this A here is actually the future value. That'll answer this one. All right, and then if you want the compound interest, you do the A, right? The interest, if you will, is this future value minus what you invested at the beginning, which is the P. All right. Now, the rest of the questions are related to annuities one way or another. Here's one. Find the future value of the annuity. I'm going to skip over to Excel here. All right, I've got these two in here. Find the future value of the annuity. All right, so I'm going to recommend that you use Excel for all the annuity type questions, okay? There's a big messy formula in the book. If you'd really rather use it, you're welcome, okay? So this one's but I'm going to show you Excel. This one's a future value question, right? So when you want to do future value, you're going to type an equal sign. And the equal sign is in Excel is like saying, hi Siri to an iPhone or okay Google to an Android. The equal sign is, okay, the next thing's a command. So for future value, you type equals FV. All right, you will have to remember that part and you type open parentheses. There's actually more than one way to put formulas in to Excel. If you're familiar with one of the other ways, you're welcome to do that. This is my preferred way, so this is what I'm going to do. Now you'll notice there's a small box underneath here. It showed up when I got the FV open parentheses. It says FV and then it says rate, NPER, PMT, and then there's a couple other things in brackets. You can ignore the ones in brackets. They're optional, and we're not going to deal with those situations. You'll notice the rate is bold, right? I'll show you that's going to change as we move through. So the rate here, kind of the one little catch to this thing, is not the annual rate, it's the rate per period. So what you do, take the annual rate, in this case that's 0.0168, right? I just took the 1.68%, turned it into a decimal, and you divide it by the number of times you compound per year, okay? So this time the compounding is semi-annually, right? Remember that was 2. So 0.0168 divided by 2, comma. Now you'll notice the bold moved from the rate to the NPER. NPR is bold, again, so that's the number of periods, and we just figured out that's 2, comma. And then the payment, we move back up to the box, you see here it says 3,000, close parenthesis, enter, bingo, there's a future value, 6,025 and 20 cents. That would be the answer to the future value for that question. The next type of annuity question, they'll ask you for the payment, the amount of the payment. Here's one here. Let's look at this question. Find the periodic payment needed to attain the future value of the annuity. Now, I did one here that's got a couple wrinkles, and I'll show you how I handle them. One is that it's the payment, and the other one is instead of saying giving us the present value, they're telling us the future value. They can tell us either one, and the formula can handle whichever one they give us. So for payment, to find the payment, it's equals PMT, and then just like before, open parenthesis. All right. Now, if you look up here, the compounded says monthly, right? Well, so monthly is 12 times a year. So the rate is 5.7%, so it's 0.057 divided by 12, right? Remember, because it's 0.057 is annual, and we need to convert it to the rate per payment. So we divide by the monthly. Then it's NPER. All right. Well, it's monthly, so that's 12 times the number of years. And in this case, the number of years is 4, comma. Now, you note the next thing that turns bold here, see this is the PV. Well, that's the present value, and this time they're giving us the future value. Okay, so just type another comma. So we got 2 commas in a row with no space. That tells it we're not going to give it the present value. And notice now the FV is highlighted. So now we just typed in the future value, 25500, and close parenthesis. If they'd given us the present value, we would have just done 1 comma, typed in the present value, hit enter. All right, so there's the payment now, $474 a month and 24 cents a month. Okay, so there's one. If you're going to do a future value, it's equals FV. You'll note, by the way, when you click on the cell you put in, if you look up here, it shows you what you typed. If it's a If you ask about the payment, it's equals PMT. All right, let's jump back over. We're almost done. Now, there's two more sections, and I really just want to say to you that in both of these sections, sometimes they're going to ask you for the payment. 7.5 is different kinds of loans from a certain perspectives. The key here is to understand that loans are a type of annuity, okay? So what's going to happen in this section, for the most part, the main challenge here is there's a bunch of different terminology that you will get. They'll talk about down payments, they'll talk about closing costs, a bunch of things, all right? You need to learn that terminology so that you can answer the questions. And then occasionally in some of them, they're going to ask you what's the payment. And you will use the information they're given, and then you can use the payment command again. All right, the equals PMT that we just used. 7.6 is again more stuff about actually multiple things. Some of them are loans. And again, for the loan questions, if they ask you for the payment, you can use the PMT command. Okay, loans are a type of annuity. You can use PMT. All right, so that's my thoughts on this one. My main thing is that the main thing I want to make sure you see out of this is how to identify the different types of questions. And if it's an annuity, if they ask you for the future value, you use FV. If they ask you for the payment, you use PMT. Actually, I don't think they ever ask you for the present value, although they could. So just in case I'm forgetting something, if they ask you for the present value for an annuity, that's PV. All right, so equals PV and then open paren. And it works, after that, it works the same way as the others. All right, I hope you found that helpful.